And I make eternal agreements.
Our joy be
with
so triumphant as we
souls
rest
to
in
say,
God
"We are going to teach
and
each other
say
who this is."
Amen.
Doesn't always feel like that in this physical time.
Today our
but I
message is
believe
about
that.
zeal.
And
the
here's
power
the
of zeal.
example. My sister and I are
As you know by now, if you've been around this year, we take the
we
first
only
Sunday
lived
of
together the
each
first
month
13 years of my life
to look at
in the
one
same
of the
household.
12 powers.
Because at that point she was 18, she went off to college.
I know we all
there is
have
no one,
favorites,
Nobody
you know, like
in this
faith
world who can push my
and
buttons or
wisdom
trigger me faster than
and
my sister.
love. And some of the
Why?
12 powers, we kind of just
We only
glance
knew each
over
other
them and
for a
don't
solid
give them
13
the
years.
attention
I love
that
her
I feel
dearly,
that they
but I
deserve.
know that it's my
I'm
story.
happy today that we
It
are
is
going to
the
take
creation
time
that I
to
produce.
look at this
There is
power
something
called
that
zeal.
happens within us that
Because
we
if
become
you are
more than,
zealous,
we've heard the
you
saying,
are a
we put our
zealot,
own filters, and that's how
right?
we then see the future
And
through
of
the
course, we have in our culture, I think
growing up as a
sometimes
child and
connotations
an
about that
adolescent
word
and still,
zealot
age 50,
or
I
being
respond to
zealous.
things in an office environment or in
I like the
social
word
setting, or with another
enthusiasm.
person whom I've just
The
met.
power of
They
zeal is the divine power to be passionate, to be enthusiastic, to be motivated, to wake up each day with that zeal for life, that energy, that creative force within you that gets you out of bed and gets you out into the world and gets you active in the act of living, seeing infinite potential and divine possibility in every aspect of your life. To be enthusiastic.
And here's the example that he gives.
You know, I have stepkids now, and I have earned a reputation in my house for being overly positive.
We experience a certain thought process, and it triggers the neurons.
Overly
to fire from
positive.
A to B.
Apparently,
You're gonna hear me
it's
reference
not
this
such a
little
good
bit
thing
throughout
always
this
to be
talk,
talking
because I
about the
truly
bright
believe
side.
that as human
Well, what's the
beings, we are
potential and
mental,
possibility in this
spiritual,
situation?
physical. We're not
You will
one or the
come
other.
to be
Coming into
described
this
by your
body
children
doesn't
and your
separate
stepchildren
us.
as overly
We tend to
positive.
categorize ourselves. But the
We
wonderful
were
thing
talking
about
about life
God is
this
so
week. I
creative
was
is that when we
teaching
see how they
my
operate,
13-year-old
we see even more the
step
power of
boy
their own
to
co-creative
the
ability.
fundamentals of golf.
So he talks
Right?
about how these
Now, if
neurons
you think
fire,
learning to play golf
and
is
as they
difficult,
fire,
try
they
teaching
tell
it to
our
a
hypothalamus,
teenager.
our thymus, our
You know,
adrenal,
it's like to the
and
power
they
of
release
10.
hormones to respond.
And one of the things
So
I was trying to
we
teach
had,
Noah was that
say, an argument
we
with
take
somebody, or a bad
responsibility
situation
for
at
the
work,
way
or
things
something's
turn out
going
in
on
our
in
lives.
marriage,
We've
or
talked
with our
about
children,
this
or with our
often
parents. It
from
happens
this
at this
podium.
point in time.
I
But
said
how
to
many
him,
of
you know, the
think
golf
are like
ball
me,
is
and you
your
might bring it the
teacher.
next day
The
and repeat the
golf
argument
ball
in your
is your
head,
coach. I'm just here to
or
facilitate
project
you
into
learning
the future
by
and say,
giving
well,
you a
based on
few
that past
guidelines. If
argument,
you
they might
hit
say
that
this,
golf
like a
ball and
little
it goes
chess game, a little chess game.
over there, and
And what
that's
Dr.
not where
Dispenza
you
says
want
is,
the golf ball
what we're
to go.
doing is we're
Guess what?
refiring
Don't
those same
hit the golf
neural
ball like that
connections,
again.
A to B,
All right?
A to B,
Find
A
the
to
way
B.
to hit the
And he says
golf
the
ball to
more that
get
we
it to
fire
go
them,
where you want to.
nerve cells
And if
that
that's the
fire
result
together
you're looking for,
wire
then
together.
hey,
We
keep
create a
doing
deeper
that.
path, so it becomes more
He's
familiar.
at age
It then
now
becomes
where
the
he's
filter
trying
to
to
see things through.
define himself.
It's a trench
He's
that
trying
we
to
dig
figure
deeper
out
and
who he
deeper and
is,
deeper because we keep
what
going
he
from A to
wants
B
from life,
and
and
nowhere
where
to go.
he
So it
fits
goes back
into
to A,
this
then
whole
it goes
big
back to B.
picture of humanity.
And at the same time,
We've
it's
all been
releasing
there,
these hormones throughout
or
our
most
bodies
of
that
us.
we actually become addicted.
It's an interesting time. And sometimes he lacks
Are we at the
enthusiasm.
whim?
And we as
Is that
parents
chemistry,
get on
that
his case a
biochemical
little bit
reaction?
because we're overly
Because who
positive.
created the trench in the first place?
We're trying to encourage him to get away from the
There was
TV
an
and get off
interesting
the
study
phone and quit the
that was done
Xbox
in
and go outside
2013.
into the
7 researchers
the
wanted
world
to
and do
actually
stuff.
see this process.
And so I've
How
reflected
is it
sincerely on this
our
thing
thoughts
called
create this neural
enthusiasm.
pattern,
I came
which
up with
then creates a
this
behavior,
quote from
which
Charles
then
Fillmore,
creates
which
a
I would
habit?
like to encourage you,
How is it? Where is
if
it
you don't
going
already
on?
know this, I'm
And they
sure
hooked
you
up a
do,
group of folks to
I
an
would like to
MRI so they could
encourage
see
you
it
to
happening.
put it on your
They interviewed them,
refrigerator door.
And they found out what are your
Write it
triggers?
on your bedroom
Married?
ceiling.
Divorced?
Maybe
Not speaking to any of
tattoo
your
it to
siblings?
the
Do you have
inner
problems
part
with
of
your
your
parents, with your
eyelids.
children? What are they? And they individually
Listen
created
to
scenarios
this.
that they could then put out.
Now,
to
apparently Charles Fillmore
groups
said
that were
this
being-
when
the
he
group
was
of
in his
people who were
early
being tested.
90s.
And they watched
I
in this first
fairly
scenario,
sizzle
they created a trouble situation.
with zeal and
They saw that
enthusiasm.
these thoughts
and
were
spring
actually
forth
going
with a
from one
mighty
point to the
faith
other, the A to B, and
to
stop
do
it.
the things
And they
that
asked him,
ought
"How do you
to be
feel?"
done
I feel
by me.
restricted. I feel closed.
Wow.
I feel stuck.
How about that? I'm going to read it again.
Angry.
I
and afraid.
fairly sizzle
So then they
with
took
zeal
it to the next
and
level. They created a
enthusiasm
solution
and
for them. They
spring
created
forth
an
with a
area of
mighty
forgiveness.
faith
They created
to
an
do the
empathy,
things that ought to
aspect
be
to the
done by
scenario,
me.
to release this.
Love the word
and they found
sizzle.
that it no longer just went
Yeah?
from A to B.
You
it
can
then
almost
went to C.
smell the sausage,
Point C, which had 4 or 5 different
right?
areas of the
You
brain.
get
And
that?
they said,
The eggs
"What do
and
you
the
feel now?"
sausage
And
and
they
the
said, "I feel open.
coffee in the
I feel
kitchen. I
relieved.
sizzle
I feel
with
peaceful."
enthusiasm.
The
I
amazing
remember
thing is that
when
this
I was a
study is
young
actually
professional
on
coming out of
mapping
college and
forgiveness
getting
in
into
our
working
brain
at
and
an
what it
investment
does and the
firm,
chemical
and they
response,
wanted
and
people
how
to get some
forgiveness of
sales
ourselves,
experience
of other
as
people,
part of
the
the
situation,
managing of these
the
funds and
acceptance
things
that
like
goes
that. And
through
so
that
I
actually
volunteered to
has
go and
a
get some
physical
sales
effect
training. And I
and can
remember one
create
thing
or
from, I was never a good
unwire the
salesperson.
behavior that we've learned
It's just,
before.
I knew very
I find
early
that
on in life that
fascinating.
wasn't
Because we
my
know in
calling.
New Thought that when we think
But the one thing I
things,
got from this
that which
call
we
was
think
somebody said
on
to me,
comes to fruition.
sell the
And I found that makes
sizzle,
sense.
not
It's
the
catching
sausage.
up to say, "Oh,
Right? And
well,
I
that's why
understood
it
that.
happens."
Sell the enjoyment of the
If we
thing, not
know
the thing
that
itself.
we can change the patterns.
And I think
How
for
do we
us
do
that
it?
are on the spiritual path and process, enthusiasm
Joe
can
Dispenza,
be
in his book,
misleading.
Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself,
We might see
has
enthusiasm
a
as
prompt
something
that I
that
wanna
comes
start
from the
with as my
outside
first of 5 steps
in,
to follow,
rather than something
to
that
make that change in
authentically
our
comes
lives,
from the
to
inside
become our best
out.
selves, to step into, I would say, our
Inside
best
out,
selves.
not
And the
outside
first
in.
step is one word.
Authentically.
When we're in
Over
that
the years,
process
I have
of
explored my
repeating,
own
"This is
spirituality
the
on a
argument that I
daily
was in.
basis, and
This
I've
is the
come to
situation at
realize
work.
that
They said
two of
this
the
to me and I can't
things
believe it.
that
Oh, I really
inspire
messed
me
up
the
on that. I'm
most,
so bad. I'm so bad. I'm so
excuse me,
bad.
is the
Right?
need
Flogging
to
the
be
thoughts
authentic
repeatedly. When we find
and the
ourselves
need
doing
to
it, when we're
live with
intentionally aware, say
personal
one word to yourself.
integrity.
Change. Not stop.
That is what
Stop tells your brain,
pushes
okay, stop,
my
but doesn't give it
overly
any further
positive
direction. So it
button.
goes back to the A to B, A to
I
B,
get up
digging
in the
that trench
morning
deeper and
happy with
deeper.
the possibility of
Change
each
makes
day
us go, "Whoa,
to follow my
change to what?"
spirit guide
the next
and
question.
inspiration to do the right thing
Number
as
2
best
then
as
is
I
ask,
know how.
have I done all that I can do?
And just that goal and that intention and
Have I
that
thought
attitude
about
for the day is the
why this
thing
is
that
bothering
fills
me?
me personally
Do
with
I know why I'm
authentic
afraid?
enthusiasm.
Do I know why I'm
I don't have
angry?
to fake it. I
Do
don't
I
have to
know
drink
what
it.
this is
I don't have
triggering
to
in me?
go through the Walgreens
Do I believe
drive-in
that
to
it's
get
true?
it. It just wakes
I
up
know why
within
I'm
me
upset
when
with
I
that
align
person?
myself
Have
with
I
the
been
idea
honest with myself,
that I have a day,
taken
a new
ownership of
day
my
to
actions,
live from truth
forgiven not only
and
them
good.
but myself? Can I do that?
And so
Well,
I
sometimes
reflected
it's
on this
hard to
this
do,
week as I
and we need
prepared for
a
our
sounding
message
board.
today.
We need somebody
And the
else there
idea
with
of
us,
this
which is
formula
wonderful to
came
have
to
as a
me.
community. I was having this
It
conversation
wasn't a long
with my
time ago
friend,
that
and
I was
she said,
facing a
"Yeah, no,
crossroads
you're right.
in my life.
Everybody needs
I
somebody to
had
hold us
a
accountable for our
business,
mistakes."
and I had been working hard,
I
and
said,
I
"Well,
was
actually,
successful,
I really believe that
but
everyone needs
completely
someone to
unfulfilled
hold me accountable
personally
for being
as
my
a human
best
being
self."
and as a person.
Because
And
the
I had to do a
difference
lot of
there is,
personal
you
reflection to
want
decide
somebody
what
to
were
come
the
to me and
things that I
say,
valued
"You did that
in life.
wrong. That was bad.
And
You
had
did it
I
again.
been
You always do that.
climbing
You need
the
to really look
long-
at
the
that. Why do you
wrong
keep
ladder?"
doing that? You do this
It was a
behavior
long
over and
ladder,
over again.
but it was also the wrong
I
ladder.
would rather that somebody said
And
to me, "Okay,
what
that
were the
happened.
things that
That's 1%
gave me juice, that gave
1/10
me
of a percent of all
enthusiasm?
that you are
And I
and all
came
that
to
you're
the
capable of.
conclusion that being
How can
spiritual
we look at this and how can you step into who
and
you
serving
really are?
spirituality
How
in other
can
people's
you
lives
be in the world what you want to be?
was the thing
How
that
can
I
I
was
support
most
you in that? Do
enthusiastic
you feel the
about.
difference?
And
One is
over a
very
course of
restrictive.
about 2 or 3
The other
years,
is
I had
very
to make
open
some
and empowering.
hard decisions
So
to
find
release
that
some
person in your
things that
life. I am
I
very grateful
had
that I
worked
have that
very,
in my
very
life.
hard to
When something
achieve
is very
and
much
was
on my
holding
mind
on
or
to.
bothering me,
Was
or
white
my
knuckling.
behavior is less than,
And
I can go to her and I can say,
in those 2
"I need
years,
you
I
to
call
sit
them
with
my
me and help
wilderness
me
experience,
remember
where I
who
felt
am.
completely
Be in this
separate,
space with
completely
me
alone,
so that I can
entirely
do that.
confused,
Step 3, number
abandoned,
1, change.
all the
Number
negative
2, have I done
yet
all that I
overly
can do?
positive
Number 3,
human experiences that you can have. But it was at
sometimes
that
this is a
time that I
hard step.
found clarity as to the
Write
guiding
3 gratitudes
principles,
about
values,
the
and
person
ideals
or
for
the
my life.
situation
and
you're
was
in.
renewed in my
I believe
enthusiasm
gratitude is prayer. It's a
to
form
be
of
who
prayer.
I am
It's not
and to
thinking from our
choose
heads. It's coming from our
the
hearts
life
and saying,
path
I
that
truly
I wanted.
am grateful.
And so the
for
formula
this
that I want to share with you
because
today is this,
it's
is
a
that
way
within
of
each
sending
one of us
out
is the
that
presence and
energy
power
that
of God.
heals.
And that presence and power of God comes
There was
to us in
a study done that's
principles.
really
These are ideas that are
mind-boggling to me.
divinely inspired,
In July
and they
of
are
2000,
perfect.
Dr. Leonard
And they live
Lubavitch
within us like seeds
Israel
waiting for us to
went to a
give
local hospital,
them our
and
attention,
he pulled
to
the
give
names
them
of
our
3,393 patients.
And when we do
Remember
that,
the
they
number 'cause
grow,
it's
and they
cool.
become the
3393.
wise things that guide us forward in our
He
lives.
did
They
the
become the
gold
strength by
standard
which we
of
persevere.
studies, medical
They
studies.
become the
That is
faith
a
by which
randomized,
we accomplish.
double-blind, controlled trial.
And these things
It's
we
the
call
gold
them
standard
absolute, we call them
because
perfect,
randomized
and therefore we
means
call
by
them
chance
principles.
this
These are
group of
divine
3,000
principles.
plus
These
people
are
were split
principles
into
of
two
love
groups.
and peace and joy.
It's double-blind. Dr. Lubavitch
compassion
nor the patients, neither one
and
of them knew
justice.
who was in what group,
And they might also be principles of
and
productivity.
it's controlled. They had
and
set parameters.
creativity
He
and
was
wisdom and
controlling for
intelligence.
all of these patients.
And I
had
find that when
sepsis
we
from being in
take the
hospital.
time
And he was
to
controlling
connect
see
with these
how
principles,
does
we have
prayer
a purpose in
affect
life.
people.
And that purpose might
So
be to
he had a
live
group of
by
prayer
those
warriors
principles.
pray for this group A,
Regardless
that the
of the
computer
work
randomly
you choose to
selected,
do,
and group B
or the
just sat in
life
file
you
cabinets.
choose to live,
And he didn't know who
if
they
your
were
life is
until at the
aligned
end of
with
prayer
divine
time,
truth, divine
he
principles,
pulled
you
the
have
information
a
from the hospital,
purpose.
and he found out their statistics.
You have a
looking for those-
purpose in
just
life
two things:
to be an
length of
advocate
stay
and
in
an
the hospital
ambassador and
duration
an
of fever,
instrument
which
for
accompanies
that
sepsis.
truth everywhere
You know
you
what I'm
are
going
at
to say,
any
and that the
time of
length
the
of
day.
stay and the duration of fever were
And
both
this is a
far
purpose
less for the
that
group that was prayed
awakens
for.
something within you. It awakens
The group that
your
was prayed
passion,
for, their average length of
your
stay in the hospital
enthusiasm,
was 165
your
days.
motivation.
The group
I
that was
don't care
not,
what
the
it
average
is
was
that you do,
320.
whether you're an
double.
engineer or a lawyer
That's
or
amazing.
a doctor or a
I wanna
minister
throw in
or
another
a
little
clerk
scientific yah-yah.
or
That
that
is,
wonderful
we consider
person that
a
greets
true
you at
study
Walmart.
legitimate when it has a p-value that's acceptable.
Excuse me, when you
Below
go there,
5 is good.
Julie,
Now,
was that a-
p-value indicates this. What's
Greet her
the
at Unity.
likelihood
There
that
you
this
go.
happened
see?
purely by chance?
Greet at Unity. If
If
you
it's 5%
do it
or less, the
aligned with
scientific
divine
community has agreed,
principle,
well, if there's only
you
a 5%
have a life
chance that chance
that is
influenced
full
this,
of purpose.
it's pretty good value that we
And
can
I
say
guarantee
that
you this, when you make that
whatever the
connection,
test model was,
your
in this
passion
case,
will
prayer,
wake up.
impacted
your
those
passion
two
for
groups.
life, your passion for
For the
truth,
length of stay in the
your
hospital,
passion for
the
good,
p-value
your
was
passion for
0.01. It was a
authenticity, and
1%
your passion
chance
for
that chance
integrity.
alone impacted.
And the minute your authenticity
That
and your
these people
integrity
stayed in the
passion
hospital
is awakened,
half the time
you are
as they
now
were prayed for.
empowered.
Now, I
You
love
are
that
living
in
with
itself, but here's
divine
where it gets
power.
really wild.
And once you are living with
The study
divine
was done in
power,
July
your
of 2000.
option, your choice to be
Patients were
prosperous.
pulled from the hospital's
has
roster.
been
They had been
ordained.
in there in 1990 through 1996.
Do you get the formula? Principle,
They prayed backwards
purpose,
in
passion,
time.
power, and then prosperity.
Einstein calls this part
Excuse
of
me.
quantum physics spooky
Now, of course,
science.
we're not talking about prosperity
you
as
go,
far
"What?
as
How did that
what kind of
happen?"
car do you drive,
don't
or how
have to
big is
figure
your
that out.
house, where do you
But
buy
what I
your
love
clothing.
about prayer
We're
and
just
gratitude
talking about
in the form of
prosperity
prayer
as each
is
one
that
of
it's
us
going to
living
impact what is
from our
happening
divine
currently in our
truth
lives,
in
as well as
whatever
what
way
happened
we
before
choose to
and what
live our
comes
lives.
next.
Whether we choose to do
That's
this
awesome.
job or that job,
That's
to marry
awesome.
this person or that
One,
person, to be
change. Two,
single.
have I done everything I can do?
Whatever the
Three,
choices
what
are,
is free gratitude?
once
Don't
those
forget
choices
yourself.
are aligned with divine principle,
Sometimes we
they are
take
in
care of
alignment
everybody
with
else,
your
but we don't turn
purpose,
inside and say, it's all right. I'm
you
gonna
are
put my flogger
passionate,
down and I'm going to thank
you are powerful,
myself for
and
taking
you are
the time
prosperous.
to recognize who
And
I
so,
really am.
like Charles
Number
Fillmore,
four,
we can say that
the
we
value
wake up
or
every
virtue
day
in
and
this current
fairly
situation that you would
sizzle
like
with zeal and
to show up
enthusiasm,
as in the world.
springing forth with a mighty faith
If
to
you're having
do
a
the
conflict
things
with somebody, who do you
that are
want to be?
ours.
Do you want
to
to
do.
be
Not
compassion?
because
Do you want
there's
to
a
be
stepfather
kindness? Do you want to
telling
be
you
peace?
you have to do it.
Do you want to be love? Do you
but
want to be
because you
forgiveness?
are
What is that value
authentically
that you want to show up as?
enthusiastic about the purpose and
Once
the
you have that
prospects
in
of your
mind,
life.
take that into
Yes?
meditation.
So I'm
open
always
the
intrigued
heart,
when I
form,
read this Charles
meditate
Formal
on
statement,
that
because I
value,
remember
that virtue.
that
What
he
does it
was
feel
near
like?
the end
How
of
do you
his
feel
earthly
when you
life
think of
when he wrote
compassion?
this.
And then imagine yourself
And he had
as
achieved
compassion.
great
What does
things
that
in the
feel
name
like?
of the New Thought movement.
What is every
Back in
aspect
those
of
days,
that?
Unity Village
What
had
does it
just
feel
been
like
built,
to
and there was
be
a lot
peace,
of stuff
to
going
be
on.
forgiveness,
Things
to sit with it?
developing in the Unity philosophy. And yet
I
he
have to
still
share
found
this
the
with you.
energy and the enthusiasm at that age and at that time in
1992,
his
two
life
doctors,
to
another
get
group
up
of
and
people,
say,
they like
I
to split 'em in
fairly
half. That's what
sizzle
they
with
do.
zeal
Split this group of people
and
in half.
enthusiasm.
And for the group A, they said, okay, we
Let's
want
talk
to
for a
measure
moment
the
about
increase
unity
of
of
strength
temper
in your finger from flexing
as
exercises.
we close the
So we're
message
going to measure
today.
everybody's ahead of time,
You
and
know,
then we're going to ask
one of the
group
things
A
that
to take your finger,
invited
your index
me
finger,
to
and flex
come
it.
here and serve
So
you over
everybody,
this
would you just do
last
that for me
year
for a second?
as your
Okay.
interim minister
Let's do it for
was
about
your
10 seconds.
vision,
You can
your
feel
mission, and your values.
how
When
this
we
impacts
started a conversation in the
wrist,
very
forearm.
beginning,
You can
it
feel that.
was not just that you needed an interim
The doctor
minister and,
said,
hey,
all right, what
I
we want
was
you to
one
do is to
looking
do this
for a
1
job.
hour.
It was
5
more
days
than a
week
job
for
for
4
me. I
weeks.
thought to myself, here's
lot,
a
right?
ministry whose vision, mission, and
But they did.
values are aligned
The other
with
group,
me.
they said,
And
okay,
so
group,
let's take the
we're talking about flexing
conversation
our
for the
fingers.
last 2 or
What
3
we want
minutes
you to
away
do
from us
is flex your
individually
finger
and take
in
it
your
to
mind
you as a community.
for 1
You
hour,
have a purpose.
5 days a week. For 4
Your
weeks.
divine purpose is to
I think
honor
this group had it
your
better off, 'cause
divine
that's hard to
principle.
do. That's
And your divine
concentration.
principle
Then they
is
came back and they
so
measured
clearly
them all again.
articulated in the
Group A,
values
as
you have
expected, had
chosen
an
as a
increase in
spiritual
physical
community,
strength
as the
of an average of
vision that you've
30%
received as
increase.
a spiritual community,
Group
as
B,
the
they weren't
mission
quite
that
sure what was
you
gonna
have
happen, but
set
they
forth.
too had an increase of strength.
And so we're having a pop quiz today.
22%. Only 8%
I'm going to read to you
less
the values, the
than those who
vision, the
physically
mission of
did the
Unity of
activity.
Tampa.
And the doctors,
And I want
I'm
you to
quoting,
take a moment to
concluded
identify
that the
with
neural origin
the
of
values
strength
are,
increases
because they're precious.
before
They are
muscle.
gems. They are divine principles.
The neural
The
origin
values
of
are, we
strength, that is,
faithfully
our
turn within
thoughts
for Spirit's
create
guidance.
the ability
We
for us to
recognize
grow
love as the creative power
prior
of
to
God
it
in action.
manifesting in our
We
physical,
are
in our
forward
physicality.
thinking and forward living. We embrace all expressions
So when you've
of
picked
God.
that virtue or that value,
You know, it's
sit
important
with
when a
it in
spiritual
meditation,
community
and you really sit with
takes
that and
on a vision
experience
that
it
they
and feel
first
what it feels
identify
like.
what their
You
values
are
are.
increasing the ability
So many
to
churches
be
these days
that
do it the other
virtue
way
in
around.
the
They
world.
ask for a vision and then they
You are
decide what their
creating
values are.
new
Your vision
neural
is an
pathways
expression of your values.
to show up as
Your mission is how you
compassion,
plan to
as
make that
gentleness,
happen.
as peace,
Those
and
are
love, and
beautiful
kindness, and
values that
forgiveness
you have
in the world
identified.
because
The
of that
vision of
practice.
Unity of Tampa is this: centered in
I
love,
love that.
we celebrate
Step
an
5.
enlightened world of peace,
Think of somebody
harmony, and
who
abundance for all.
epitomizes that value to you.
I ask you, isn't that
When you
exactly
think
what
of,
we
for
need
example,
at this
compassion,
time
I
in
think
this
of the
world
Dalai Lama.
from a
I think
spiritual
of Mother
community,
Teresa.
a vision like
When
that?
I think of kindness,
Centered in love, we
I think of
celebrate
Ellen
an
DeGeneres.
enlightened world
She
of
always says,
peace,
be kind to one
harmony,
another.
and
When I
abundance
think of
for all.
gratitude, I think
And
of
your
my
mission.
wife. She's a very grateful
We are a
person.
thriving spiritual
Who in
community
your life
that
or who
embraces
that you can think of
diversity
is that
and
archetype
inspires
for you?
personal transformation
And then as
by
you're sitting in
living
that place
unity
of holding that
principle.
value in your heart and your body, have
Therein
them
is your
step
principle.
into you.
Therein
Imagine
is your
that.
purpose.
Kind of like, remember the movie Ghost?
If you
with Patrick Swayze and
align
Demi
with your
Moore?
principle and your
Just
purpose,
stepped
your
right on in
passion, your
to Whoopi Goldberg.
enthusiasm will awaken,
Be
your
that.
power will be
Sit
unleashed,
with that. What does
and your
that feel like?
prosperity.
If I
is
showed
assured.
up as this
In
person
closing,
in my
you
life,
can claim
what does that feel like?
the Charles Fillmore quote
Who
as
can
your
I
own.
become?
I fairly
We
sizzle
have the ability
with zeal and
to change
enthusiasm
our
and
behavior
spring forth
to
with a
correct
mighty faith
things,
to
to
do
learn
the
more.
things that ought to be
Becoming
done.
me is
by
less
me.
about becoming and more of
May
becoming
this be your
aware of
experience,
who I really am.
and this be your
right?
truth as we take
And we
it
can do that because we
into
can choose to
meditation and
live
bless it
like
with
the
intention.
person, the
Join us
virtue
now as
that
John
we
leads
admire.
us in
Live
this
like
song
we
to
know.
prepare our hearts and minds for meditation.
Thank goodness we have pets to remind us
Actually, I've talked
of
Tanya
eternal
into leading this.
uninhibited love and joy. John is going to come forward and we're going to start into our meditation here shortly. And I want you to think of what that virtue would look like.
Lord, prepare me to be a
Got the
sanctuary,
opportunity to visit another Unity ministry.
pure and
And I want to tell you something.
holy,
It's always, when I visit and go to other ministries, there's always an opportunity to make some comparison. You know, that human part of us that likes to compare. I have yet to go to a ministry that has a better music team than Unity of Tampa.
Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy.
I shared that with John today, and he said, "Hey man, ease off on the pressure, will you?"
With thanksgiving,
Keep it going, guys. Good job. All right, so today is the first Sunday of August, and August is the 8th month of the year, and so we take time to focus on the 8th power of the 12 powers. Thank you, Barry, for helping me remember the 12 powers. Barry's in our SEE class, and I think the assignment for